Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the TeamRICH webinar by Action Coach. This is Steve Kiyama speaking, and we're going to kind of keep an eye out here while participants start to log in. This is very good. I hope everybody's had a happy new year and a safe new year, certainly. And I hope everybody's ready to get started in a brand new year with new goals to accomplish for this year. What we're going to talk about today is how to build a successful team, a team that you can be proud of, but a team that can accomplish all that you need done by the team. An ultimate goal for a team is to build a group that can run the business without you having to be there, which allows you to focus your energy more on the creative side of things, as well as to look at ideas and expansions and other things you can do that allow you to make the business a bigger and more successful venture all the way. Now, we're still looking at participants logging in, but we're going to get started here right about now. So let me start by talking about who we are. And for those who might not know, Action Coach is the world's number one business coaching firm. Now, the basis of that is more than 1,000 coaching offices operating in more than 70 countries worldwide. It is privately owned and founded by Bradley Sugars, who himself is an entrepreneur from a long time ago, and a book author. And in fact, we use a lot of the books that he has written in our programs. Collectively, our vision is to create world abundance through business re-education. And with that vision, we are at this point coaching over 15,000 businesses every week across all 70 countries. Most of them in the United States, the UK, Australia, New Zealand, Malaysia, Vietnam, and so on. So it's a very broad organization that's been running since 1993. So we've got about 25 years of experience doing business coaching. We've developed a fairly systemized process for doing that. And that allows us to have the basis and the depth of systems that facilitate a really effective coaching process that helps businesses develop what it is that they're looking for from their venture. I myself have a bit of a background as well. I originally grew up in Rochester, New York. I have an electrical engineering degree from Clarkson University, which took me through a broad range of businesses, ranging from a very technical career. 22 years after I started my career, I acquired an MSBA, which is a more analytical version of a MBA. And since then, I've spent about 20 years running small business units for large corporations. And I've grown every one of the 5 business units that I have led. The last one I grew 300% in a 3-year period of time. For the last 9 years, I've been a business coach, a mentor, and a trainer for other businesses. And so that gives me a background of experience that I've been very successful helping business owners get more of what they want from their businesses. Now, where does that take us? What I want to talk about first is frame of mind, so that we can learn how to learn and how to use that information most effectively to get the most out of what we want. So the first thing to think about is this point. This point is a point of power, and I'll show you what that means. If we start by thinking about the kinds of people we've known in our lives, a good percentage of them live in a world of blame, excuses, and denial. Think about who you know that lives in these kinds of places, and what kind of lives do they get? What does that lead them to? And then think about those people who really take ownership of where they're trying to get to. They take ownership of where they are. they're accountable, they're responsible. They take responsibility for doing what it takes to get to where they want to go. And what happens to these two groups of people? If we think about the people who live in the world of blame, excuses, and denial, they tend to be powerless. They tend to get nothing. They hope for other people to solve their problems for them. On the other hand, those who have taken ownership are empowered to become successful. They are building the tools that make them successful and allow them to achieve what they want to achieve. So which group do you think you want to be part of so that you can get what you want out of this? Now, once we accept this, then we can think about where are we going from here. And the only failure in that case is the failure to participate. If you think about it in reality, this is all a lab. Life is a lab. You try things, you see how they work. If they get the results that you want, you keep doing them. If they don't get the results that you want, then change. Work at getting a better result just from what you learned from trial and error. Don't accept an experiment that did not produce results as a failure. Accept it as an experiment and learn to move on so that you can be successful achieving what it is that you want to achieve. Now, once we get to that thought, then we think about what this phrase, I know, does. What does that mean in your life? And for those of you who have teenagers who become experts of this, yeah, I know, Mom, or yeah, I know, Dad. And when we get a little bit older, we do it a little bit more politely. We don't say anything, but we cross our arms and maybe our legs and say to ourselves, yeah, I know. But this all kills the possibility of learning new stuff, learning new ways to get better results, or learning ways to improve the results from what you're doing now. So a better way to go about this is to get rid of that phrase in our vocabulary and replace it with, isn't that interesting? So I'm going to ask, can we get agreement today that everybody is going to focus, when you see something new or hear something new, we're going to focus on the phrase, isn't that interesting, so that we can get to where we want to be and achieve the learning that we want to learn. Now, what can you expect from this webinar? Well, my hope for you is to achieve what we would call BFOs, or a couple of blinding flashes of the obvious. Stuff that you've heard at some point in time, but today you get an aha moment where you get a connection with a little bit of information that allows you to do something more effectively the next time around. Now, I'm going to get to the point at this stage where we want to think about, what do you want to learn from this webinar? What are the things that you really want to achieve? What is it that you're trying to get from your business? You could type it into the chat box, and that'll help me focus in on what it is that you want. Otherwise, I'm going to follow the plan that I've got here, and we will go from there. So we got any input? All right. So one input that I've got is, how do I hire the very best people? Yeah, and that's a good one. We're going to focus on that quite extensively, actually. Okay, I've never led people before. How do I do that? Okay, so those are two good inputs, and we will go with those. Very good. Now, at this point, let's dig into the material. And I'm going to get myself out of the picture here so that we can get focused on results. Now, what we're focused on is team. So what does team really mean? Team to us means together, everyone achieves more. Now, what this means is that we're totally committed and working together. If you think about it, adding people can be the ultimate leverage to accomplish more than you can achieve all by yourself. Now, what does that mean? Well, you could do more work, but the more important thing is you can serve more customers. There's a limit to the number of customers that you can serve by yourself. You've only got so many hours of the day that you can work. So how many customers can you serve in that period of time? But then what if you could serve 10 times that? Well, that's where we get to together everyone achieves more. So the whole purpose of having a team is the ability to achieve more than you could by yourself. Now, the problem is, and a good consideration to pay attention to, is how sports teams work. How do they function? Well, it isn't just, and for example, a football team, it isn't just one player for each team out there. There are 11 players on the team. And there aren't just 11 players. I believe there's about 44 players total, each one playing different specialty positions. Now, within that framework, in some years, a given team performs really, really well. Other teams, other years, not so well. So you think about the New England Patriots, for example. For several years there, they were doing extremely well. Why is it that they were doing so well? And what has affected them for performing not quite as well this year as they have in past years? Although they did quite respectfully, what are the kinds of distractions that have held them back? And so think about this, because the very same kinds of factors can affect your team. And you want to be paying attention to what learnings can you get from other people's experience there. Now, games, and I'm going to talk about games a little bit. Games are often a reflection of individual performances. When I do workshops with people, live workshops with people, with teams that are trying to grow, we often play games so that we can see how different individuals perform in different ways, and that gives us some fodder to talk about so that we can think of what's going on there and why are they doing that. So we often play games, but you think about yourself when you play a game. Think about the people that are on your team. How do they perform? And we're going to dissect that just a little bit here. So think about how you play the game, and who do you know that's on a team that's all out for themselves, but if they can't win, nobody else is going to win either. And this kind of comes under the category of a lose-lose paradigm. If I can't win, nobody will. And the problem with having a person like this on your team is they tend to sabotage your results. How many of those do you really want on your team? Another kind of behavior pair here is the win-lose people and the lose-win people. Now, the win-lose people, they're going to win. They're the hero. They're the one that did it all. Nobody else can possibly perform up to their level. They're the star. And they will sabotage anybody else's performance to get to be the star, just to make them look like the winner. The other guy is kind of the opposite of that. He's constantly giving it up to somebody else, constantly. So the guy that has to be the winner, he might seem like a real important person to have on your team at any given time. But the problem is he's the only winner, and it's only him. And so the team becomes limited to his performance, and the rest of the bodies are just there going along for the ride. If any of you have been around long enough, there have been team after team after team that have gone through this superstar syndrome. You take the superstar out, and then the rest of the team has to learn to play. Now, the first year or two of that's a little bit tough, but all of a sudden you can redevelop a winning team and perform much better overall collectively once you've got rid of the stars. The lose-win guy, this is a person who never grows, who never learns how to be the winner, and in fact, he may devolve into blaming other people when he passes the ball to them and they don't get the shot. Well, it's their fault they didn't get the shot. Well, he might have had an opening, then he didn't take the shot, And so the team performance lags behind what you need. So you get kind of a neutral score on that scenario. Now then you get the guy who's the win-win person. He's out for the whole team. The important thing for him is that the team wins, and he has to do his best to match, to make that possible. And so he has to work. And if you've got a team full of these people, then the results become exponential. If you can develop that. Now the key is, how do you go about developing that? So let's think a little bit deeper into what kinds of people do these kinds of behaviors, and so that you can see it coming. What it really starts with is the concept of respect. There's a person with high self-respect, and there are other persons with low self-respect. There are people with high respect for others. There are people with low respect for others. And what you see are patterns of behavior inside of those. So the person with low respect for others and low respect for himself tends to be that lose-lose kind of person. He can become manipulative in a form of aggression. The person with a high self-respect but a low respect for others, this is your hostile, aggressive, win-lose kind of person. You get the person who is high respect for others, but low respect for themselves. This is this lose-win kind of person, very passive-aggressive, actually. These are the persons who will blame others most frequently for not getting the results. And then you've got the assertive person. This is kind of a challenging person because they're very proactive about getting stuff done. They seem pushy, but in fact, what they are is in a win-win mode. They're trying to solve the problems that prevent them from getting the team from where to where you want it. So they are constantly looking for a win for the team, and they are doing everything possible to solve the problems. Now sit down and think about, which of these kinds of people do you want on your team? Give that some thought. If you think about who you want on your team, now you can think about, how are we going to achieve that? And that takes us back to the same grid, and you can see the patterns lay out. And this is what gives you the clues for how to interview for people, how to look for and assess, is this the kind of person I want on my team? So if you think about the questions, I'm okay, you're not okay, I'm not okay, you're not okay, I'm not okay, you are. If you think about those statements, formulate questions, and you can find ways to interview both recruits and your existing team members. Who are the ones that are really contributing to the overall team results? Who are the ones that are in the way of generating better results for the team? Now, for the people who've registered for this webinar, I have a 2-page document with some sample questions, and I will forward that document to each of the people who registered for this webinar so that you can see this. These are very good examples of what you can think about as you're recruiting, so that you get the people you want. It's easier to, it's hard to teach personality. It's hard to teach character. It's relatively easy to teach skills. So if you're faced with a choice of hiring somebody who's got all the skills but has an awful lot of personality baggage versus somebody who doesn't have quite so much skill but has the ideal personality, they're very enthusiastic for the business vision that you've got and are willing to learn and want to help the whole team succeed, which of those two people do you want to hire on your team? Then that kind of gets us to the question, who's on your team already? If you had to hire them today, would you? I'll let you think about that for a second. That's a really core question. If you had to hire them again today, would you? And with that said, what should you do about it? And so those are questions that I want you to think about and are probably things that can help you improve your business right now. Now, that gets us to a question about comfort zone. A lot of people attend seminars. They come up with a whole bunch of good ideas from those seminars, but they never actually implement those good ideas. Or if they do, they implement them for a couple of days or a couple of weeks, and then within 2 weeks, they're back to doing it the way they always did it before, because that was their comfort zone. So what do you want to do about that? Do you want to keep doing things the way you always did? Or do you want to get yourself doing things differently for a long-term period of time? And I'll be honest with you, this is what coaching is all about. This is probably my most important value to a business owner. While the knowledge is important, what's more important is continuing to do things that take us out of our comfort zone, but take us towards the behaviors that will produce the results. So the real goal here is to learn how to expand your comfort zone, learn how to do the things that it takes to make yourself successful. And it's hard. You have to see what's going on. Remember, you learn to walk by falling down. If you've got kids, and let's suppose that they're teenagers by now, do most of them know how to walk by now? Well, how did we learn to walk? We learned to walk by making mistakes, by falling down, didn't we? And really, that's the same thing in our lives and our businesses. We have to learn how to fall down and get back up and go on and move on towards the goal of walking. We didn't fall down once and decide not to learn to walk. We fell down and we said, well, let's get up and do it again. Well, get that attitude back in your life and let's learn how to do that again. So there's kind of a formula to think about this. Us as adults, it's a lot tougher. We have to think about things. We have to internalize things. We have to rationalize things. So here's a formula to rationalize all this stuff with. D times V plus F must be greater than R. What does all of that mean? Well, if we break that down into small pieces, something about the status quo is not good. We're not happy with it. We're dissatisfied. What is that? Why is it dissatisfied? What is it about that dissatisfaction that's holding us back? And if we could fix that, and this is where we get to the vision, if we could fix that, where would we get it to? And what could happen if we solved that problem or that challenge or that dissatisfaction, whatever it is? What could our business be performing like if we did what it took to make it all different? Now, this D and V process, if we really understand our dissatisfaction and we really understand our vision, what kind of a score would that give us? What kind of a power would that give us to overcome our resistance to change? And it's that resistance to change that we've also got to understand, that we've got to say, well, what is it that's holding us back? And are we resistant to change because we're not so dissatisfied? Are we resistant to change because our vision isn't really very big? If we can make the vision very big and understand the dissatisfaction and be unhappy with that dissatisfaction because it's holding us back from the vision, then we can design some small first steps to start moving, building momentum towards overcoming the resistance and achieving the result that we wanted to achieve in the first place. So that's how we think about it. We did that as a child when we were learning to walk, but we did it instinctively. As adults, it's a lot harder to do it instinctively, so we have to rationalize it, break each challenge up into small pieces like this, and sit down and ask yourself, what can I change? How can I make it better for myself? Now, this image is supposed to be an iceberg. And what do we know about icebergs? Well, for example, we know that about 85% of the iceberg is below the surface of the water and out of sight. So we can't really see what's going on below the water level. Well, so if we use this as an analogy for people's behavior, including our own, we can see the actions, we can see the behaviors, we can see the things we do, the decisions that we make. We can see all that stuff. What we can't see is the reasons why we do it. Well, if you think about it from a perspective of where did we come from originally, we grew up in some environment, and the environment in this case is the surrounding water. We grew up in some kind of an environment, and from that we developed a self-identity, and then with that a set of values, and then with that a set of beliefs, and then with that a set of skills that were built upon the foundations of those beliefs and values and identity. So if you think about it, we're doing things the way we've always done. What's it going to take to do things in a different way to get a different set of results? Now, first of all, we got to make a decision. It's got to start with a decision and a commitment to stop doing what we're doing and start getting a different result from what we've been getting. Then the next step in there, the fastest next step in there, is to build the skill that's different. Learn new facts, learn new ways, learn intellectual academic things that we could apply towards a different set of outcomes. Once we've done that, what that allows us to do is to build a new set of beliefs that go around with the idea that we can do it, we can achieve better results if we do it this way instead of that way. Well, once we get new beliefs that allow us to do things more effectively, then we can choose new values, and then we can take on a new identity. And then we can change the environment around us. Now, it doesn't hurt to change our environment just to give us a new perspective on things. That'll speed the process up a little bit. But it really starts with developing new skills. And that's a piece of what I'm trying to accomplish today, is to get you started in a process of seeing new ways to do things that you haven't ever done before. So why do people stay where they are? Now, there's a whole bunch of answers, and I'd be happy to see yours, but the real focus of it can be analyzed down into this simple word of fear. And most of that is going to be based on false expectations appearing real. So if you've got a fear, what is that really? What is it that you fear? Why do you fear it? What's holding you back from that? And can you focus on overcoming that fear? Now, let me give an example. Some time ago, a colleague of mine, this is back in the days of newspaper ads as opposed to Google ads, somebody issued put out an ad for a new employee. Now, the city that he was in was divided in two by a river. So half of the city was north of the river, half of the city was south of the river. And what happened is he put that ad out with one change, and that is north of the river, he put out an ad for $50,000 a year. South of the river, he put out the ad for $250,000 a year to see what he would get. Which one do you think attracted the most numbers of applicants? Believe it or not, the ad with a $50,000 a year salary attracted the most applicants. And the analysis of that came down to people who didn't believe in themselves. In other words, engaging in self-sabotage. They were holding themselves back. They could have applied for the job for $250,000 and they didn't. They applied for the job at $50,000. Why is that? And what is it that holds us back? Do we hold ourselves back because we've allowed ourselves to sabotage our own beliefs in our ability to accomplish a goal or to do a job in this particular case? Think about that from the point of view of the people and how you're advertising for people. What are you getting? Are you getting ads for people that are just enoughters? Are you getting ads for people that are real winners and want to go get it and create the results that you need them to create? So that kind of gets us to this formula of be times do equals have. So what are your goals? Think about your goals just for a minute. What goals do you have? Well, those goals are haves. You want to have something that you don't have right now. Well, if you don't have it, then you have to do something to be able to have it. Something different than what you're doing right now. And if you have to do something that you're not doing right now, then you have to be the person that will do those things that will get the results that you want to have. So this really isn't so much about the actions or the do's, it's about being the person that will do those things. And so if we want to have a team that really performs at the top level, then we have to do the things that enable us to create that team. And we're going to talk about those shortly. But if we're going to do those things, we have to be the person that will do those things. So that really comes down to who are you, what's your self-identity, what can we do to help you improve that self-identity so that you can have the goals that you're looking for. That's what this formula is really telling us. So what do you fear the most? Then let's figure out what that is and get it done, so that we can accomplish what it is you want to do. Now, this is where we're really going to get into the meat of this whole business of building a team. And I'm going to show you the 6 key factors that will allow you to build a top performing team. Now, part of the problem here is it's easy to jump to the last couple of steps. But if you jump to the last couple of steps, then none of it will really come out because it all has to begin at the beginning. So the first step is strong leadership. Now, what does that mean? What it does not mean is a dictatorial yelling style of leadership. And in fact, the good news is that would be a loser anyway. You want to develop strong leadership, and that's going to be based on passion and responsibility. Passion for the vision, responsibility to do the things that it takes to do in order to achieve the vision. The purpose of the vision, to enroll in and inspire your teammates to accomplish what they want to accomplish. Maybe you have, maybe you haven't heard of things like skunk works. These are little teams, small teams that companies use to solve big problems. And they put them off in a corner and they give them a goal and they tell them to achieve that goal. And those guys sit down together without a lot of interference and they find ways to achieve that because they were inspired to achieve that particular goal. Well, what are you doing to inspire your team to achieve a vision? Well, part of that is you got to be talking about the vision all the time. Part of that is you got to recruit people that believe in the vision and believe that their mission is to make it important to achieve that vision. They have to be proactively doing stuff to achieve that vision. One of the fallacies that we get into is those of us who hire people just because they've got a set of skills. We're basically hiring for somebody that can fog a mirror, if you will. That we're just hiring to get a body. And if you think about a car with a very powerful engine, there are cars out there with 16 cylinders that drive an awful powerful engine. The equivalent of that analogy is the body and the mind would be providing 3 cylinders each of power, which is kind of an anemic amount of power. What we really are looking for is their heart and their spirit, which is what adds the rest of the power to all of that. That's what drives that particular engine. That's what helps a person become, or a business become really, really powerful, is the people who not only have the body and the mind, but bring along their heart and their spirit to achieve that vision. So it's all about vision, all about a very compelling vision. Why would somebody want to work for you and give everything that they've got, all of their enthusiasm, all of their energy? What is it that you're doing that attracts that kind of commitment? What do you need to be doing in order to achieve that kind of commitment? These are the differences between being a manager of bodies or a leader of enthusiasm, a leader of energy, a leader that gets out and gets more from people than what they would give by themselves. Now, this kind of gets us to what's the real purpose, what's the real mission, what's the real role for an owner. Many owners start a business by themselves, and they start it by serving just a customer all by themselves. So there's a relationship that's built only between the owner and the customer. And so the owner, while he gets a lot of experience and understands in a certain way how customers think and what customers need, his entire paradigm is wrapped up around his customers. And then when he gets a little bit busy, he hires people to do tasks, assuming that his team members will be just like him. But they're not. And what he winds up doing is he winds up redoing work, he winds up putting out fires, and he ceases to be able to serve customers by himself. And so the overall business goes down and down and down and down. So you really have to stop and rethink what's the role of the owner. And the role of the owner is really to 100% support the team. That includes training, that includes coaching, that includes all of the things that it is setting the processes, setting the standards, setting the systems up so that the team can serve the customers in a way that achieves the results that the owner was trying to achieve. And as he does that, and as the team size grows, then there's enough customers to support the business, and then the business can support the owner. So it really starts with how do you drive the team? How do you lead the team in order to achieve the service level to the customers that you need to achieve? And that does not come about by the owner continuing to serve clients. It comes about from the owner working with the team exclusively. Now, part of that is developing a very common goal. And the operative word here is common. If your team members don't own the goal, then they will not achieve the goal. They have to be so enthusiastic about it. And this is where the passion came in. If the passion for the vision is as high as it needs to be, then collectively you can put the goals together, the tactical goals and the strategic goals together, that enables you to get them engaged and performing appropriately. But if they don't own the goal in their heart, then they will not really strive to accomplish it. So it has to be done together, and it has to be significant enough to be worth their effort. Then that gets us to a concept of rules of the game, and this is how do we play together. I'm going to go back to the sports analogy. If you think about different teams, and I like to think about football because there's so much publicity around football teams. or basketball teams that you can kind of see and hear what you need to get a grasp of what's going on in a particular team. If you think about it, teams and sports operate both loose and tight. Loose in terms of people and content, tight in terms of rules, culture, and context. For example, and I'm going to go back to the Patriots. The Patriots, during the years that they perform really, really, really well, have a tight, highly disciplined culture. And teams with poorer cultures, they don't perform any near as well. And so they've got tight rules around their culture. They've got tight rules around their performance. They've got KPIs. They know the stats and the numbers for every single player, and they're working together very, very, very tightly. Then out on the playing field, it's very loose. They know the routes, they know the discipline, they know the signals, they know what they need to know to perform well, but they've got the whole field to play in, and they can use every inch of the whole field. And that's something you need to think about, is you need to have tight processes, tight rules, tight standards, tight ways of getting stuff done that everybody knows and everybody follows precisely. But you've got to be loose with the people to allow them to actually perform and do what it is that they're supposed to be doing. So you provide the rules, and then they can follow the rules and accomplish what needs to be accomplished out on the field as fast as they possibly can. But as you go along, the standards need to raise. If you stay the same, your competitors will beat you in time. And so the key performance here is you need to be thinking about raising the standards in order to improve your performance so that your customers will stay with you and continue to buy from you all along. Now, the problem with that is different individuals may not be prepared for the increase in your standards. That is okay. You can let them go and they can go work for somebody else or form their own business at the level of performance that they are willing to achieve. You can get new people to fill those spots, but you still need to raise the standards. Not everybody's going to go with that. Again, you can see that in a football team or a basketball team. People don't stay there forever. They have to move on at a certain point in time. As the team needs different talent, as the team needs different perspectives, as the team needs different performance levels, you have to drive all of this. This becomes your role to drive all of that. Now, as we go on from there, then we need an action plan. And this is kind of happens along with the rules of the game. The action plan is based on who does what by when. Now we're getting down into the details, the nitty-gritty of the systems of how a business is performed. We'll need to think about an organization chart, maybe not today's organization chart, but a future organization chart. What's it need to look like at the next increment? What are the requirements of that position? And then what are the systems that they need to follow? What are the flow charts? What are the steps that they need to do in order to do their job well? So there will need to be systems manuals, and then your plan for KPIs, flow charts, all of that needs to be detailed out so that they can follow a process that you don't have to be intimately involved because it's all in your head and not in theirs. And then as people come and go, then all they have to do is fall back on the position contract, the systems manual, and the rest of the plan details so that they know exactly what it is they have to do in order to fit the goals of this business. And then your business has a chance to perform. You have a chance to take a vacation. Now, this is where the hard part begins. Yeah, and the rest of it was easy. This gets to be the hard part. This is where you have to allow them to learn in the same manner you did. So how did you originally learn? You learned via trial and error. Well, what that means then is you've got to let each of them have an opportunity to also learn by trial and error. So you have to support them in taking risks to do the job the way they want to try it, so that they can learn new things. Now, this is important to you. And think about, there's a Japanese phrase for a process called kaizen, which means change good in literal terms. What that's really getting us to is a constant and never-ending process of improvement. So where do the ideas come from to improve? Well, many of them will come from your team members. They will be the ones that are in the weeds doing the work. They're going to be looking for ways to be more efficient and ways to improve. That's good. If it's successful, it's things to update the system manuals with. If it's not good, then you stop doing it and try it something else. But your goal needs to grow and then plateau and consolidate the success, and then grow again and plateaus and again consolidate the success. So this kind of Kaizen thinking is a very good tool, but you can't do it all yourself. You got to depend on your team members to think of many of these things, to try many of these things, so that you can improve. This kind of gets us to the question of two brains is better than one. Well, what if you've got 5, 6, 8, or 10 brains that are constantly trying to improve? And so you want to give them some opportunity to take some risk, support them through that process, monitor it, keep an eye on it, manage it, but watch it and focus on how can you make each part of your business constantly improving. And then this becomes the real rewarding part, but also the real most difficult part. You want them to give 100% of their energy, effort, whatever they've got to improve your business. But to do that, you've got to include them 100% into the decision making, so that they feel needed, wanted, and important enough to give you 100%. This is what you have to do to earn it. So this is partially involvement, but in reality, you have to include them in the thinking processes each step of the way. You've trained them 100%, let them have 100% involvement in how to make the business better. Now, what that creates is a synergy among the team members, and what we're looking for the synergy is an exponential growth in results. That's what we're really looking for here. You don't want a team of 2 to produce the results of 2. You want a team of 2 to produce the results of 3, because that's so important to them to get the results. That's the focus of the vision. This is where the vision becomes so important to the overall results of the business long term. Now, every successful team has rituals. These are unique. It could be handshakes, it could be high fives, it could be cake at lunch on Tuesdays, it could be dinner out on Thursdays. But every single team has a different set of rituals. If you watch football teams or you watch basketball teams, before the game and before they jump out to play, they've got a ritual that gets everybody connected to each other and fully involved. You need to develop your rituals so that the team can get most deeply involved. Now, this is where I'm going to make an offer to you today. My offer is to take an initial action step towards building the best possible team for your business. To accomplish that, I'm offering one free 2-hour coaching session to convert this general information to your specific business situation here in my office. Here on the screen is my contact information. For those of you that registered for today, I will be sending you a copy of this webinar. You'll be able to pull this information back up if you don't already have it. But my goal is to help you learn how to make your business most successful. And I'm offering a 2-hour free coaching session in order to get a first step going with that process. That is just my offer to you today, and that's the last I'll say of it here. So what I want you to think about now is what's your to-do list from all of what we've talked about. What are the 3, 4, 5, 6 things that you picked up that you need to do? Think about, are there any questions that you've got? And do you have any questions you want to ask me?